A promise, a curse, a king imprisoned in a repulsive form, and a princess bound by her own words. The Frog Prince is one of the opening and most famous tales in the collection of the Brothers Grimm. To millions of children, it is a simple fairy tale of magic and a kiss. But beneath the surface of a bedtime story lies a truth far more complex and stark. This is not a story about love at first sight. It is a story of an iron promise and the price of keeping it. To understand the Frog Prince, we must return to early 19th century Germany. Europe was in the tumultuous grip of the Napoleonic Wars. Along with the rise of Romanticism, an intense wave of interest in folklore, language, and national identity was spreading. The two brothers, Jacob and Wilhelm Grimm, were not entertainers. They were leading linguists and philologists on an academic mission to collect and preserve the soul of Germany, which was threatened with erasure through its oral stories. They sought the authentic poésie, poetry of the common people. When they published their first volume in 1812, The Frog Prince, Der Froschkönig, was placed at number 1. That position was not accidental. It established the central theme for the entire collection, the absolute moral importance of keeping one's promise. Significantly, its original full title was The Frog Prince, or Iron Heinrich, oder der Eiserne Heinrich. For centuries, this second part of the title, Iron Heinrich, has often been forgotten. But as we will see, this mysterious character holds the key to the story's entire meaning. The story begins with innocence and vanity. The youngest princess, her father's favorite, loses her most prized possession, the golden ball, down the deep well. The golden ball is more than a toy. In symbolic analysis, it represents her perfection, her royal status, and her orderly, sheltered world. When it is lost, her world collapses. And from the abyss, from the depths of the subconscious, an entity appears. The frog offers a bargain, an exchange. It will retrieve the ball, but in return, the princess must promise to love it, to let it be her companion, to eat from her silver plate, and to sleep on her silk bed. The princess, in her fleeting desperation and believing a promise made to a mere frog holds no value, quickly agrees. She has made an iron promise, with no intention of honoring it. This is the first act of immaturity. But a promise, once spoken, takes on a life of its own. The frog is no ordinary animal. It is the living embodiment of that forgotten promise, and it has come to collect. This is the story's moral turning point. When the frog knocks on the door and demands the bargain be fulfilled, it is the king, the symbol of law, order, and patriarchal authority, who intervenes. He is not concerned with his daughter's disgust. He is concerned only with the integrity of the promise. He makes it clear, what you have promised in your time of need, you must now perform. In the social context of the 19th century, a royal promise was an unbreakable contract. If the king's word had no value, the kingdom itself would crumble. The princess is forced to confront the consequences of her shallow words. Psychoanalysis, particularly the analyses of psychologist Bruno Bettelheim, offers a deeper layer. The frog is not just a frog. It is a symbol for the aspects of life we find distasteful or repulsive, particularly emotional and sexual maturity. The princess is on the cusp of womanhood. The slimy, ugly frog represents the physical, instinctual side of a relationship that her naive psyche, accustomed only to the perfect golden ball, is not ready to accept. Being forced to eat with it and sleep with it is a metaphor for a required intimacy, an inevitable part of growing up. And then the climactic moment. A critical truth is often misunderstood. In the original 1812 Grimm version, there is no kiss. The kiss was a later adaptation, a Victorian romanticizing of the story to soften its edges. The true transformation occurs through an act of violence and an assertion of will. When the frog demands to be lifted onto her bed, the princess's disgust and fear reach their peak. She does not kiss it. She seizes it and hurls it against the stone wall with all her might, screaming, "Now you will be quiet, you disgusting frog!" It is in this precise moment of violent confrontation that the curse is broken. Why? Because the princess finally stopped running and stopped being passive. She met the problem head-on with her frog. By unleashing her rage, she broke through her own immaturity and engaged with the reality of her situation. She grew up. And the moment she changed, her reality changed with her. The frog turned back into a king, not because of love, but because of confrontation and acceptance. More than 2 centuries later, the iron promise still resonates powerfully. We live in a world built on contracts, commitments, and agreements. We often make promises lightly, just as the princess did, only to find ourselves bound by them for years. The story warns us that words have weight. The consequences of broken trust are real. At the same time, the story teaches us about growth. Each of our frogs looks different. It might be a difficult project, a complex relationship, a hard truth about our health, or an aspect of ourselves we refuse to acknowledge. The Grimm's tale shows that maturity doesn't come from avoidance or waiting for a magical kiss. It comes from confrontation. It comes from embracing the disgusting, the imperfect, and having the courage to throw it against the wall, to face it and resolve it. But the story is not over. This is where we return to the original title, Iron Heinrich. As the prince and his new bride set off for his kingdom, they are escorted by the prince's loyal servant, Heinrich. The story tells us that when his master was cursed and turned into a frog, Heinrich was so overcome with grief that he had 3 enormous iron bands forged around his heart, lest it burst from sorrow. He had lived with that burden for years. As the carriage travels, the prince hears 3 loud cracking sounds from behind. He thinks the carriage is breaking. But Heinrich explains, "No, master, it is not the carriage. It is the iron bands from my heart, which are breaking apart in joy now that you are free." This is the final, most profound lesson of the Frog Prince. A promise is not just a personal burden. When it is honored, even one made reluctantly, it has the power to break more than one curse. The princess's growth freed the prince, and the prince's freedom shattered the iron bands of another's silent suffering. A promise, when kept, is not a prison. It is a key, unlocking not only ourselves, but also the iron hearts that have been quietly breaking all around us.